Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Fellowship Church. We are so glad you're with us today as we continue our series called Foolproof. This morning, we'll be continuing to talk about wisdom. Today, wisdom really in our relationships or our friendships. We'll talk about really who we're surrounding ourselves with. Really, are they wise? Who's sitting next to you right now? Are they wise? I'm kidding. All right, but we're going to get a lot out of today's message. Hey, if today is your first time joining us online at Fellowship, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to get on our email list as a way to really keep informed of all that's going on, just take a moment to fill out what we call our connection card on the homepage of our website. That's fellowshipchurchct.com. There's also a place on our homepage for prayer requests, as we would love to pray for all of you this week. Just one quick announcement today. As some of you may have already heard, FC is excited to host Making Waves Vacation Bible Camp this summer. This will be Monday through Friday, July 11th through the 15th in the evenings for the kids entering kindergarten through 8th grade. Registration starts today. You can register online on our website or pick up a form in the kids check-in area if you join us physically in the future. In order to make this an amazing week, we will need lots of volunteers. So if you can help out, please sign up to volunteer online or again in the FC Kids check-in area in the future. We just cannot wait to see what God is going to do at VBC this summer. That's it for me. I hope you each enjoy the service.
There's a grace when the heart is under fire, another way when the walls are closing in, and when I look at the space between where I used to be in this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There was another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminded of how I've been set free, there is a cross that bears the burden where another died for me. There was another in the fire. All my debt left for dead beneath the waters. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. And should I fall in the space between what remains of me in this reckoning, either way I won't bow to the things of this world. And I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminded what power set me free, there is a grave that holds nobody, and now that power lives in me. There is another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire. Oh, I can see the light in the dark. between us. Nothing stands between us. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come what may in the space between all the things unseen in this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. Yes, I know I will never be alone. There'll be another in the fire standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding how good you've been to me, I'll count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. There is another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire. There is another in the fire.
What happens next here shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. You crank the wheel, the song plays, and eventually, well, you know, the lid flies open, and out comes the fool. Why are we shocked? Why are we caught off guard when, after all, we're the ones turning the handle?
Well, hey there. Today we're wrapping up our series, Foolproof. We've been looking at wisdom, its application, how we can use it to be able to help us live a life more with gratitude rather than regrets in our life. And before we dive in, I do want to let you know about this one book that's out there that I would highly recommend. If you're interested in pursuing wisdom in your life, it's written by Pastor Andy Stanley, and it's called Better Decisions and Fewer Regrets. Might be a good next step for you to take in your journey here in finding wisdom in your life. Well, listen, a while back I was in Atlanta, and I had the opportunity to go to something really cool. It was called the Porsche Driving Experience. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but our group that I was with didn't literally drive the Porsches, but we were afforded an opportunity to ride in one of those with a professional driver. Oh, let me tell you, it was exhilarating. I mean, the straightaways, you know, when they would get going, we were thrown back into our seats. They'd have these sharp turns where you felt every bit of the G-forces, and then windy roads throwing you back and forth, back and forth. And the first lap was a blast. The second lap, though, I have to be honest, it ended with me feeling maybe a little nauseous and a slight headache. But hey, you've heard that old adage though, you know, you are who your friends are. You know, friendships are a lot like that driving experience, I think, aren't they? Sometimes they're exhilarating and so much fun, and sometimes they leave you feeling a little nauseous and with a slight headache. Actually, friends are really like a shifter in a car, right? Think about this. Some of our friends that we have, the friendships that we're in, they move us forward. It's like putting that shifter in drive, and they move us forward. These guys are going somewhere. We're helping each other to become better. Maybe a better spouse, better parent, better student, better leader, better follower of Jesus. And then we have some of these friends, let's be honest, they kind of just, we go through life in neutral with them. We're just drifting, right? There's no direction really, no purpose to it really, just kind of coasting along in our lives. And then, unfortunately, sometimes we have these friendships that are kind of like putting us in reverse. They're taking us backward. We're repeating mistakes over and over and over again. Usually there's a lot of regret in these relationships, and we wonder once in a while, why am I in this relationship? It's just a big mess that it's creating. Here's the truth. We're all responsible for our own choices, aren't we? But who you run with really does shape so much of who you become. Matter of fact, Solomon writes about this in Proverbs 13. He says, walk with the wise and become wise. Associate with fools and get in trouble. You know, we've been talking about the power of wisdom over these last few weeks. And wisdom's that ability to make good and wise decisions. It begins with this reverence that we have for God, that God is God and we're not. Wisdom also comes from suffering. There's like this redemptive quality to it that God offers to us. Wisdom teaches us a lot. And one of the things that wisdom says is choose good friends. I mean, no one, think about this, no one besides your mom really talks about this, right? Matter of fact, our society applauds being well-rounded over being well-surrounded, doesn't it? But if you want to raise your wisdom quotient, you need to walk with wise people. You want to raise that quality of your life, raise the quality of your friendships. You know, Proverbs will challenge us when it comes to choosing friends. For instance, in Proverbs 18, it says, there are friends who destroy each other, but a real friend sticks closer than a brother. In other words, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. That's why it's so important that we, first of all, choose friends who move us forward in life. You know, author and Christian psychologist Henry Cloud, he introduces us to the 3 types of friends in the book of Proverbs. And these people are mentioned repeatedly. Some of them are good friends and others not so good. So for instance, there's the wise person. These people bring the best out of you. They speak wisdom into your life. They're moving forward in life. You know, you might look at them and say, I want a family that looks like their family, or I want to lead my business the way that they do. Why not seek them out? When you have wise people in your life, seek out wise people. Be intentional about being around them. The best thing that you can do if you know that somebody is wise is start a conversation. Just get together with them. I mean, this is where church is so important, right? This is where gathering comes in, right? Be around people who are taking their faith seriously. They're on the same journey that you're on. Let's follow Jesus together, right? Learn and grow from each other. Surround yourselves with wise friends. But Proverbs also talks about another person, and the writers call him the fool, right? Now, here's the thing about the fool. The fool can be bright. The fool can actually be very smart. But because of selfishness or because of character flaws and issues, they don't care about the consequences of their actions. And let's be honest, we've all played the fool at times in our life. But we tend to kind of bail out fools, don't we? They'll be in our lives and we're finding ourselves in trouble along with them and we try to rescue them for their decisions, but they're not really trying to change their decisions. And so all we have is all this avoidable problems in our life and drama increases greatly. So what do you do when you're friends with a fool? Well, wisdom says set a boundary when you're dealing with foolish people. You know, set this boundary. What does that look like? Well, it looks like things like this. I can't entertain this foolish behavior anymore. We're going to have to set a boundary in our relationship. I can't keep going down this road. I can't keep bailing you out. I can't keep repeating the same mistake over and over and not really taking responsibility for it anymore. I need a little bit of boundaries in my life. And we can do that with foolish people. Now, then there's a third type of person, and hopefully you don't have to deal with this often in life, but that person is called the evil person in Proverbs. So think about this. Fools hurt you accidentally, right? They just, they can't get out of their own way. But evil people want to hurt you intentionally. I mean, this is where police and lawyers get involved. Get some distance from evil people. And there's pushback to this, right? Sometimes it's like, hey, Pastor Andy, aren't we to love our enemies and pray for those who persecute us? And the answer to that is yes, we are. But the Bible doesn't command us to open our hearts and homes to people who would seek to destroy us, right? You can love somebody and still limit their access and even say no to them at times. Jesus taught us to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves as well, right? So all through life, we interact with all these different kinds of people. And so what I would encourage you to do is choose wisely. Seek wisdom. Commit to grow. Push yourself. Learn and listen to wise people. You know, at FC, you're sitting around and you're engaging online with wise people who've gone through so much, and they've learned a lot as well. God's taught them so much. It reminds me of what Paul wrote to the church in Corinth. He says, God comforts us in all of our troubles so that we can comfort others. When they're troubled, we'll be able to give them the same comfort that God has given to us. You know, God doesn't waste hurts, and that's why we are to live in community. We can be wise and help each other. So what do you do when you're around somebody who's wise and you want to learn from them, and you want to develop and grow in a relationship? Well, let me just give you a few questions that you might ask them. Maybe sit down for a cup of coffee and ask questions like this. Hey, what's the greatest lesson that you've learned in life so far? You might be surprised at what you hear. Or how about this question? How have you learned to handle failure? Because let's be honest, guys, we all deal with failure at some point in our lives, right? How about this one? What have you experienced that I should experience? You know, what is it that, where have you gone or done or some places to be that I've not experienced yet in my life? Or books that you're reading? Or how about this one? This is a favorite. How do you practice the presence of God in your life? What does that look like for you to acknowledge God in your everyday life, each and every day? And how does that change how you look at people and how you look at situations in your life? See, wisdom in friendships is just about pursuing people who have that capacity to elevate your life, wise people. It's also about your own character. And it's really about being a good friend yourself. And that leads me to the second point of today, and that is be a true friend. You know, sometimes we're out here looking for wise people, but are we pouring into people as well? Are we a wise friend to those around us? So what does that look like to be a wise or a true friend? I think one of the ways we can do that, and we can find it in Proverbs, is that a real true friend shuts down gossip, right? One of the best ways to show that you're trustworthy to your friends is to shut down gossip. How do you know if something is gossip? It gets all convoluted and confusing sometimes, doesn't it? Well, here's the thing. Gossip is discussing anything negative with someone else who can't really help solve the problem. That's what gossip is. And if someone gossips to you about somebody else, chances are they're gossiping about you to other people. So gossip, just at its core, it betrays trust and it destroys friendships. It reminds me of what was written in Proverbs 20:19. A gossip goes around telling secrets. So don't hang around with chatterers. It's an interesting verse. How about this way? Here's another way that you can really be a true friend. Speak the truth in love to your friends. Proverbs 27:6 says, wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy. There's a video that's recently been gone viral online. It's really this conversation or this speech that Coach Saban from Alabama, the football team, he gave to his players, and he's talking about friendship, and he's talking about speaking the truth in love to your friends. And so he shared the importance of friendship and leadership when it comes to this concept of accountability in a friendship. And without mentioning anyone by name, Saban referred to that former Alabama and Las Vegas Raider wide receiver Henry Ruggs III, the time that just not long ago, a few months ago, where he had that fatal DUI incident last November, I think it was. And he said this: if there was a player in Las Vegas who was drinking at 3 o'clock in the morning with his buddies and his girlfriend, and somebody would have taken his keys away, it probably would have ticked him off, Saban said in the video. But it probably would have made him mad, right? It probably would have made him mad if you would have taken his keys away. It probably wouldn't have, he probably wouldn't have even thought that much of you for doing that. But would he be better off now? Or is he better off where he was going 156 miles an hour, running into someone and killing him? And now he's in jail, and he doesn't have a career anymore. And he's a good kid. And we never had a problem with him on our team in Alabama. So what kind of friend are you, he asked. What kind of leader were you when you allowed the guy to do it? But nobody wants to do that, he says, because you're afraid of what somebody's going to think of you. Isn't that true? Sometimes true friends have to say hard things. Things like, I think you're on a dangerous road here. Now, if you're one of these truth people, we're always talking about this tension of speaking the truth in love. If you're one of these truth people, you're probably going, yeah, that's what we need to do. Speak more truthful to each other. And I would just say to you, if you're really high on truth, but not very high on love, maybe you should be focusing a little on love, right? Remember that saying, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care? That's for you, and that's for those of us that struggle with that truth side of things, or the love side of things, I should say. How you say the truth, when you say it, where you say it, all of that context matters. Now, if you're one of those love people, you have a hard time being honest with people because you just want to love people, maybe you do need to develop your truth factor a little bit. Maybe you do need to develop this. Sometimes these conversations, let's be honest, they're really hard. They're not easy to have. But just like we just heard from Coach Saban, some of them, they're life and death. And they might not like you initially when you tell the truth to them, but if they know you love them, over time, I think good will come from them and from that. Also, here's another thing. Let's not give up on our friends. Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend is always loyal, and a brother is born to help in time of need. When someone's going through a difficult season, we sometimes kind of move away from those people, don't we? Sometimes we're just uncomfortable. We don't know what to do. A lot of times we just don't know what to say, and so we just slide away. And you know what's going on these last couple of years? There's been a lot of that going on in friendships and in relationships. And honestly, there's so many who are dealing with loss. Loss of loved ones, loss of the way things were, loss of jobs. I mean, you just name it. There's just all this loss that is piled up. And the way that we process loss is really through grief. But here's the thing with grief. We're confused by it, right? A lot of us aren't really good at handling it. We don't even know what to do with it. Can I just share with you some things about grief that I think will be helpful? The first is this. Grief is individual. Every single one of us grieve differently, and we need to respect that. And that's why we're a little intimidated by it. I mean, honestly, feelings are meant to be felt, not just squashed down. And here's another thing about grief. It takes time. You don't just have one conversation and grief is over. You don't get over grief. You don't get over the situation, the loss. You get through it. Here's another thing about grief that maybe a lot of us don't know. Did you know that grief is actually a gift from God? It's what He's created us to do, to be able to create a pathway through the transitions of life, the things we've had to say goodbye to, and to this new world of what we're saying hello to. It's a gift from God. So, can I give you a little wisdom? When we get real intimidated about when our friends are going through difficult things and we don't know what to say, here's what I'd say to you. The deeper the pain, the fewer the words you need to say. It's really about the ministry of presence. It's about just being there. If somebody gets a simple hangnail, you can say, oh yeah, I had a hangnail once before, and here's what I did, and this what happened, and it got over in a few days, and it was fine. But if somebody has experienced deep loss, they don't really want to hear you chatter a whole lot. They just want you to be with them. So just be there. Listen without judgment, and let's not give up on our friends. Now, we don't need just good relationships in our life. We really need faith relationships in our life. Where Jesus and His values are central, and Jesus is our example that we follow. So I want to ask you this question. Do you have faith relationships in your life? I mean, Jesus is a perfect friend. He's faithful. He never gives up on us. His friendship is never exhausted. His grace is always enough. He forgives you. He loves you unconditionally. He's attuned to your emotions. He cares for you. And more than anything, not only is He your friend, but He's your Savior. Through his death and resurrection, he's taken all of the sins that in your life, all of your sins, all your regrets, and he's laid them on himself. And he's paid that ultimate price for them on the cross. John 15:13 says this, "There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends." That's what Jesus did for you. That's the good news. Because of his powerful act of love and redemption, you can have the greatest of relationships with Jesus. He's proven that he's there for you, that he's faithful, that he's filled with grace, and that he'll always love you. So what will you do with Jesus? That's one of the most important questions in your life. Will you invite him into your life to forgive you of your sins? Will you follow him each day? He's your perfect Savior and friend. Well, finally, I want all of us to ask ourselves this question. What am I going to do to cultivate more faith relationships? I think that's what's important in this next season. I think that's the wise thing to do, and hopefully you would agree with me. You know, friends who are walking on the same journey that you are, why don't you take a chance, rebuild some of those old friendships that may have kind of grown cold throughout the pandemic. Reach out maybe to someone new who you respect, or take somebody in your FC group out for coffee, whatever your situation is. But here's the important thing. Be wise. Commit not to just be well-rounded, but to be well-surrounded. And you know what? You'll be glad you did.